What is ambiguous loss and how can it help you, especially if you're a caregiver? Hey, I'm Priscilla. I'm your Houston, Texas nurse, and I'm going to help you take action today for a healthier tomorrow. This is video 3 of a 3-part series on aspects of being a caregiver that no one really talks about. And in my last video, I spoke about a phrase that is very important called ambiguous loss. It's a phrase I learned in this book that I was reading shortly after my dad had a life-altering stroke, and it's called Loss, Trauma, and Resilience by Pauline. I asked if y'all wanted a video on it. I got some requests, and I'm very happy to share this with you because if you are a caregiver or not, this can help you in any aspect of your life because I just haven't heard anyone really talk about it. What is ambiguous loss? Ambiguous loss is a loss that has no projected end. It is a loss that is not defined with terms on how to manage it. And here are some examples. So when someone passes away, it is to be expected to mourn that loss. There is a funeral, right? There is a grief period, usually. It's acceptable to be sad. It's acceptable to have a hard time getting back to your day-to-day demand. People around you more or less understand what you're going through, right? There's this general understanding that when someone passes away, it's hard, right? And so there's a level of understanding of, well, she just lost that loved one, so yeah, she'll be sad, or it might be hard for her to do her work, or whatever, you know? But with ambiguous loss, it is where there is a loss. The person is either still alive or there's no unknown aspect to their loss, meaning it could be a person that goes missing, and so the family doesn't have the body. They don't know how the person passed away, and there's a lot of unknowns. Now, that's one aspect to it. The aspect that we're going to talk about is among caregivers and people, especially watching a loved one, a lot of times a parent or grandparent or spouse going through a demanding, life-altering disease process that has changed who the person used to be, and they are on a timeline of decline where you do not know what that timeline will look like. This is still a loss, and this is something that I experienced when my father had a stroke. He was a completely independent, healthy man providing for my mom. His children were adults at that time, but even still, he could do everything independent. Then he had a stroke, and now he is completely dependent. He can't move the left side of his body, and it has been this decline. And so as mental states start to decline, right? As demands for caring for people start to increase, there is a source of grief involved with that. But it is markedly different than grief when someone passes away because the person is still alive. Shouldn't you just be happy? There is no mourning period. The person is still alive, so there's no funeral, right? However, there is a huge loss. The person that used to be here is no longer here anymore. That is one example of how being a caregiver can actually ruin the health of the caregiver, because unless we are able to process emotions efficiently, especially things like grief or loss, it can pop up as physical ailments later in life. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to create this video also, is because if you're a caregiver, one of the best things you can do for your physical health is to learn to process your emotions. And one of the most transformative things that helped me process my emotions was understanding this term. No one talks about it, so I hope this helps you. Here's just a few more notes I have about it. So ambiguous loss has been compared to PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. But the difference is that with PTSD, there's a traumatizing event that is over, right? So people who fought in wars have horrible PTSD, right? Understandably so. However, even though the event is over, the flashbacks happen repeatedly. In ambiguous loss, the trauma is ongoing. You are watching someone slowly fade away while usually also giving them a lot of your physical and mental attention, right? The trauma is ongoing. The assault never lets up. But both PTSD and ambiguous loss have the power to paralyze relationships for a lifetime and to impact subsequent generations. How? Because of resentment, because of unprocessed emotions, because of not taking care of yourself in the midst of these things. And one of the best things you can do is acknowledge your emotions and realize that you are not crazy for feeling sad, for feeling run down, for not just being happy because your loved one's still alive and didn't pass away, for feeling overwhelmed, for feeling selfish, for taking care of yourself in the midst of someone who can't take care of themselves. You need to take this very seriously. And that was one of the worst mental battles I encountered, was after my dad had a stroke. And then subsequently, about 2 or 3 years after, I had the worst physical health of my life. By embracing this and learning about this, it helped me physically as well. The other aspect to ambiguous loss is there is a profound sense of sadness and loss. However, the death of someone is not present. And that can be a really big mind battle. It is okay and it is normal and acceptable for you to feel a profound loss because someone who used to be there is not there anymore. Especially in situations like Alzheimer's, brain injuries, or stroke, people witness the presence of someone, but we mourn the loss of who they used to be. And that can be very hard. This is different in the mourning situation, or the mourning of someone, like I said, who died, because there's no funeral. Rather, you're just carrying this mourning on and on and on. You're expected to continue on like everything is normal, right? You don't take a week off from work because you're caring for a loved one, right? You do if maybe you have a funeral, but not in this situation. And that's why ambiguous loss can further fuel exhaustion and health issues in the caregiver, because it can become unresolved trauma that manifests physically. Here are 3 things to help you if you are going through this. And the number one thing, and why it's important to talk about this, and why I think you should send this to someone if they're going through this, or bookmark this if you think you might be in the future, is by simply acknowledging ambiguous loss. It will help you. Because by acknowledging that this is a thing, you can release yourself of the guilt that you might be experiencing for being sad, the exhaustion that you might be feeling for mourning the loss of someone even though they're still there. You can know that this is not a source of weakness in you to feel this way, but rather it's just a difficult time and a really difficult emotion. It can be really hard to acknowledge that until we can kind of name that emotion that we're experiencing. And this is the emotion you're experiencing, ambiguous loss. And this is extremely transformative. The second thing is to understand, another reason I made this video, that the process of discussing something rather than ruminating on something. Ruminating are these silent thoughts that we have in our brain where we potentially roll things over. Why do I feel this way? Why did I do that? Shouldn't I just be happy? Oh, I feel guilty for taking time for myself. I shouldn't go travel because that person loves me, needs me, or they can't feed themselves. And so I should just be happy that I at least can feed myself. They can't walk. I should just be happy I can do that. No, they're not dead. I should just be happy they're alive. That's rumination. And by discussing things rather than ruminating on things, you will create resilience. Isolation is not helpful in these situations. I know because I did it. I have done it. There's a difference between isolating yourself and being alone to let yourself refuel and recover. Isolation is not healthy, and it is very detrimental to your physical and mental health. So we have to have loving and caring relationships in your lives. So the second advice for you is to know that discussing this emotion is very important. If you have siblings, if you have loved ones in your life, if you have a friend or a few friends who are providing love to you rather than taking it away, invest in those relationships. And people in your life that refuel you rather than drain you will help to get you through this time. This is another reason in my own life that having things such as people who share similar values, right? In my life, my faith is extremely important. And this is something that refuels me rather than drains me, right? And having something like that for you is very, very important. The ability to discuss things with other people, discuss emotions. And I hope that discussing this helps you as well. The final thing that is really important for you as a caregiver is to make sure that in your priorities of helping your loved one eat, be taken care of, have their daily needs met, be cared for, you need to eat well, nourish your body, and move your body. It is equally, if not more important for you to do so, because if you don't do that, you will not be around to help the person who needs you, right? You are currently the legs on their table, and they are the table. And if those legs are weak, they're going to fall. And so don't let the weight of what the other person needs prevent you from doing what you must do to be well. And sometimes that means saying no or creating boundaries. But more importantly, I would say for caregivers, it is finding the things that require the least amount but provide the greatest reward. And that's what I do in my coaching program for all my clients. We ask ourselves, whether they're a caregiver or not, what small aspect can create the greatest reward? That's something my dad taught us growing up. Big doors swing on little hinges, okay? And during high stress situations, that's when it is the most important. Maybe that means you don't spend an hour prepping food. Maybe it means you get food that's already prepped, or maybe you keep meals super simple, or you realize the power of going for a walk rather than not doing any workouts. This is the time in your life to have things very, very, very simple so that you do not feel so overwhelmed that you end up not doing anything for yourself, and then give it time, and it can lead to more disease, more issues in your own life. And that is a sign of true resilience. In the midst of highly stressful times, to be able to maintain your mental and physical well-being. And you can do that. You can do that. And that's what I hope that this video helps you to do. I want it to be a source of encouragement rather than, depressing. But this greatly transformed my life in the aspect of just speaking about it. I hope it helps you too. If you want to check out this book, it's Loss, Trauma, and Resilience. Again, any questions or anything else that you would like to hear about being a caregiver or ambiguous loss, please comment below, and hope you enjoy. Stay healthy and take care.